please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. If we get a perp that is a relative of someone that is famous, should we treat them as if they are famous? Or should we treat them as if they are a worthless sack of plop that belongs here? Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome some inmate whose number I've already forgotten to the ISO cubes. His name is Timothy Schofield. He is the brother of someone reasonably well known who has since been cancelled like there was no tomorrow because it turns out, apple tree not far from. Although completely different crimes of course, and one can argue one didn't necessarily commit a crime but it is highly inappropriate regardless, whereas the person we're speaking of today, Timothy Schofield, did in fact commit a crime. But we can quickly talk about his brother before we get into who Timothy is. Philip Schofield was for the longest time a television presenter. For 14 years he hosted with Holly Willoughby This Morning. Their relationship fell apart after Philip Schofield came out as gay. Not because he was gay though, but because he was in a relationship with someone he got a job for at the show. Yes, who he had started talking to when they were 15 on Twitter. That person eventually came out and told everyone about what Philip had done. Philip's career is over as he had lied to his close friend. Their relationship is done. He no longer works for ITV, he's been dropped by his agency, in fact everywhere has dropped him. What a shame. But we are not here to talk about Philip Schofield, we are here to talk about our newest inmate to the ISO cubes. Inmate number, yes I finally remembered it, 170, Timothy Schofield. I did do on the Halls of Injustice YouTube channel a short talking about this. I'm not going to play that though because essentially it would render this entire video moot. As I'd like to do a bit more of a dive into it, we're going to do that now. I'm going to tell you about who he is, the crimes he committed, the trial, the sentence, and any other subsequent fallout you need to know about. So let us now begin with who is Timothy Schofield, aka inmate number 170. We might allude to Philip again, because they were at one point quite close. Inmate number 170, aka Timothy Schofield, is a 54-year-old civilian police worker from Bath, which is in Somerset. Somebody that operates as a civilian police worker could be one of many things. This includes crime analyst, communications officers, command, dispatch roles, and human resources. Some operate under temporary or permanent appointment, with civilian police workers typically paid from appropriated or non-appropriated funds. Timothy retained this role until the moment he was found guilty. When one works for the police force, a standard is already set. It's rather high. If you are the type to take advantage of that, the inevitable fall is a guarantee, and the response should be swift. At the same time, innocent until proven guilty, therefore he was right to have retained his role until he was found guilty. He had for the longest time a very close relationship to his brother, something which did change, allegedly, also the moment he was convicted. How close that relationship is, we only have a few photos of them over the years together, nothing more to go on. So with this rather small morsel of information, we now go to the crimes of Timothy Schofield, aka inmate number 170. Between October 2016 and October of 2019, Timothy Schofield was at that time alleged to have been involved with a child under the age of 16. The boy in question, who he had insisted, Timothy Schofield that is, was over the age of 16 at the time, allegedly sat apart whilst masturbating. Timothy Schofield was also accused of performing sexual acts on the teenager. Somewhat frustratingly when it comes to covering this subject, you will notice in the sources down below, every single article is a copy-paste of each other. We've covered this before within the Halls of Injustice. When trying to ascertain as much information as possible, we are given very little by those who are granted the opportunity to be present to record it, indicating that while this is a somewhat high-profile case, reality is one or two people turned up and the others just got permission to post it and put their name on it. In September of 2021, Timothy Schofield had met up with his brother, visited him in London in fact, because after a phone call he seemed agitated and in an upset state. Timothy Schofield that is. They had gone for a meal where at a point during that discussion, Timothy raised the issue of sexual activity with the complainant. He also expressed suicidal thoughts. but rejected Philip's suggestion to see his GP. Quote, Tim said he didn't want to take the pills. At some point in the conversation, Tim told me he was also impotent, and I responded that there are pills for that too. I was washing up and Tim was standing behind me and he said, "You're going to hate me for what I'm about to say." I said there was nothing he could say that could make me hate him. Timothy then told him about watching porn with the teenager and performing sexual acts, with Philip Schofield turning around and saying, "What did you say?" Timothy explained the situation to him, with Philip replying, "Tim said, it was just this once. I told him it should never happen again." Timothy then tried to give his brother more information, which led to Philip Schofield shouting at him, "Effing stop." I didn't want to know any of the details, but he made it sound like a one-off. I said, "I don't want you to tell me any more. You've got to stop, just never do it again. Regardless how that happened, it must never happen again." Eventually, John Doe came forward, and Timothy Schofield was arrested. He was charged with 11 sexual offences against a child, including 2 of sexual activity with a child. 3 of those 11 charges were causing a child to engage in sexual activity. The other 6 charges included 3 charges of causing a child to watch sexual activity and 3 of sexual activity in the presence of a child. This is all the information I've been able to find concerning what it is he at this point was alleged to have done. I do hope that this is enough for us to now move to the trial aspect, but I'll be honest, that part's going to be short as well because trial coverage has magically vanished from some aspects of the internet. While Timothy Schofield maintained throughout the entire trial at Exeter Crown Court that he was innocent, he was convicted after 5.5 hours of deliberation by a majority of 10-2 of all 11 offences. During the trial, the prosecutor, Robin Shellard, had read the statement from Philip Schofield, the one we went through with the crimes part, and needed something to pad it, that was it. When Timothy Schofield took to the stand, he admitted that he had started experiencing suicidal thought, and that his life had been very difficult, indicating he had struggled with mental health problems for years. He also admitted to searching online for terms including young boy teen sex, gay teen torrents, but insisted this would return results showing men aged between 18 and their early 20s. Timothy was then asked about his arrest in 2021 and the police interviews, which he replied no comment to questions. Timothy Schofield told the jury, "I was in such an awful place, and I was just trying to get my head around what had been said, what I was being accused of. I had just been arrested, I was in a police cell." The prosecution said his explanation for sexual behaviour with the victim was incoherent and garbled. The defence though claimed the victim was exaggerating and lying about his age. At the moment he was found guilty, Timothy Schofield was remanded into custody until sentence. The judge ordered pre-sentence reports. The NSPCC had put out a statement saying that child sexual abuse can have devastating and long-lasting impact on a person's life, and Timothy Schofield's actions were deeply harmful. We hope the young man he targeted is receiving all the support he needs to move forward with his life. Philip Schofield put out his own statement, saying, "My overwhelming concern is and has always been for the well-being of the victim and his family. I hope that their privacy will now be respected. If any crime had ever been confessed to by my sibling, I would have acted immediately to protect the victim and their family. These are despicable crimes, and I welcome the guilty verdicts. As far as I'm concerned, I no longer have a brother." Since it was only a few weeks later that Philip Schofield himself ended up losing his entire career for what he had done to somebody he had started talking to when they were 15 years old, one's brain does start to light up about just how far that apple really did fall from the tree. So with this information, we now go to the sentence of inmates number 170, aka Timothy Schofield. Timothy Schofield, found guilty of 11 sexual offences involving a child between the years of 2016 and 2019, was sentenced to 12 years in prison at Bristol Crown Court. Passing sentence, Mrs. Justice Cutts had said it was wrong on every level for you to behave as you did. He felt forced to do what you wanted, trapped and unable to escape. He felt he couldn't tell anyone and did not do so for many years. You took away his ability to be the teenager he should have been, carefree, relaxed, happy. It is clear to me that you became utterly obsessed with him. In John Doe's victim impact statement, he said, "Before Tim was arrested, I felt I had no freedom. I often felt panic, stress, and fear. I felt like I was trapped in a loop of fear and anxiety of the abuse happening again. It was only after Tim was arrested that I felt safe. It was only after Tim was arrested that I felt free. Free to be me. Free to be happy. Free to be relaxed. I feel more blunt, I feel more bitter, I feel numb to life. I know I should feel really happy or sad, but I don't have the ability to emotionally react to what is happening. And just to go back to the judge in this, she also criticised Timothy Schofield's response of self-pity by saying, "I've not heard a single word of remorse from you, only self-pity," which is a damning statement for how he has not really owned up to what he's done, how he is not necessarily maintaining his act of innocence, but just refusing to acknowledge or play his part in doing right, righting this wrong, admitting what he has done, bringing a form of closure to this horrendous situation. Miscreants, like you, belong in ISO cubes like this for the rest of your life. And I think your brother belongs in here as well.